Hey everybody, what's good? The American national anthem says, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." Liberty. But what is liberty? Liberty is the state of being free within a society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. It's also the power or scope to act as one pleases. I found this video called "What is Liberty and How Does Self-Government Work?" by Eric Metaxas. Eric is an author, a speaker, and a radio host. I'll leave a link to his website in the description of this video so you can learn more about him if you so choose. While we do that, I'm going to keep working on this kid's book, but before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. What is liberty and how does self-government work?
Oh, hello. I'm Eric Metaxas with Liberty University. Speaking of liberty, what is liberty? Also called freedom, is really what we say when we mean self-government. Now, in the history of the world, no one had ever governed themselves, no nation, no people, ever until 1776. And so
think about how long the planet has been around. Depending on who you are, it could be anywhere from 6,000 years to hundreds of millions of years. All of that time spent with some sort of figurehead, some sort of king, some ruler, some kind of something. And in 1776, people were thinking, we're done with all that. We're done. We think that we can do it better. We think that people should have the freedom to do and be whatever it is that they want to be. You guys like to talk about freedom and all this stuff, but then when it actually comes to letting people be free to do whatever it is that they want to do, you guys have a problem with it. You want to identify as a soldier when you're not, but yet people want to be left alone. They don't need the government interfering with whoever it is. Liberty, it's in the rules. Liberty, the freedom to do and be whatever you want to be. Eric, come to find out, Eric Metaxas is a conservative. So let's see what he has to say.
Governed themselves, no nation, no people.
But that is wild.
Until 1776. And so
it's wild
why
that
in the world did self-government suddenly pop up and, as we now know, flourish for almost 2.5 centuries? What was it that took place in 1776? It kind of makes no sense. Why was this not possible before America came into being? We have to really understand the preposterous idea of self-government. In other words, there's a very good reason people had not governed themselves, because it's essentially impossible. People do what they want. Usually the strongest person, the person with the biggest gun or the most power,
the biggest mouth,
and rules and governs those under him. And if it's a decent ruler, things are okay. If he's not a decent ruler, things are miserable. That's kind of the history of mankind in a nutshell. And then suddenly in the 18th century, Americans came up with this idea, the wild idea of liberty that had never been done before, and we can't take it for granted because it's so fragile and so crazy, it really shouldn't exist at all. So what was it that made them think they could pull it off? Well, leaving the Constitutional Convention, because we know that 1776, we declare we're the United States of America. We fight, we win 1783, but in the 4 years between 1783.
And that's what's wild to me. Our forefathers fought a war to be able to not have to deal with some king or some strongman or some big mouth telling us what to do and how to do. It's crazy that some of us have fallen for the siren song of the strong man. We had a straight up war, whipping the ass of people trying to tell us what to do.
1787, things weren't working so well, so they go back to the drawing board in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. They, meaning Ben Franklin and Washington and the whole the gang of founders, and they say, can we create a government that works where people govern themselves? Never been done before. Can we do it? And the answer, in a nutshell, should be no. To cut to the chase, they do it. Benjamin Franklin leaves Constitutional Convention. This is at the end of 100 days. They're done. And a woman, Mrs. Powell of Philadelphia, says, what have you given us, Dr. Franklin, a monarchy or a republic? They honestly didn't know if it was possible. Maybe they'd end up with like a soft monarchy.
Because it was new. It makes sense.
Well, no. He looks at the woman, Mrs. Powell, and he says,
it's exciting. When you actually realize what freedom truly is, you start to realize why all of these people are killing themselves to get here. I come from people who saw the United States as the shining city on the hill, all that stuff that you guys like to preach about. Oh, America's great and all that stuff. It truly is. And that's why people come here, because they don't want to live under a regime of some hothead or some dumbass dude that thinks that he knows better. And they just don't. In America, we have scientists, we have teachers, we have engineers, we have all kinds of very intelligent people that I would look to for answers to be able to have a good life. I don't need some dude telling me though what I'm supposed to do, and especially not what to do with my body.
A republic, madam, if you can keep it. That's the key. If we want self-government, we have to govern ourselves. Can we do it? If we're free, if we're genuinely self-governing, then it cannot be coerced. There can be no real force involved. So there's a conundrum, and here is how it works. I learned this from Os Guinness. He calls it the golden triangle of freedom. The golden triangle of freedom is that freedom requires virtue, virtue requires faith, but then faith in turn requires freedom, which requires virtue, which round and round it goes.
To be clear with you guys, I want to make sure that we understand that trilogy or that triangle that he's talking about. We understand freedom. Freedom is, you can't really tell me what to do. As long as I'm not breaking the rules, as long as I'm not hurting anyone, you get to leave me alone. You have the opportunity to mind your own damn business. The definition of a virtue is behavior showing high moral standards. With freedom, you have the obligation to have high moral standards. Listen to what Eric is saying. High moral standards. So if you're getting in trouble for ripping people off, you're getting in trouble for lying, that is not a high moral standard. If you go into government just to enrich yourself, that is not high moral standards. If you get into government just because you have a problem with power and you're just greedy with power, that is not a high moral standards. Since he's a conservative, I'm assuming that he's going to say faith in God. I have faith in God. I use everything that I was taught as a child in church school as the scaffolding to my life, but I don't let faith get in the way of other people living their life. Faith is for me, freedom for me, virtue for me. I live a free life of high moral standards, and I believe that there are a lot of things that we can glean from the Bible, that we can glean from Christianity as a scaffolding to move forward in a democracy, to move forward with liberty.
Then faith in turn requires freedom, which requires virtue, which round and round it goes.
Faith requires freedom. You can't tell me what God to worship. It just so happens that I believe in the God that most of us believe in, but I don't translate I don't translate the Bible, I don't translate the rules, I don't translate any of that and then force it upon other people.
Okay, so freedom requires virtue. A lot of times you hear people say like, hey, freedom is awesome, liberty and faith, they go together, freedom and faith, and you think, but why? Because to be truly free, you must govern yourself. And the question is, why would you govern yourself freely without being forced? Well, it would be because you have to have virtue. All of the founders, every one of them understood this idea, that this crazy idea that had never been done before of liberty, self-government.
And this is back in the day when people actually stood true to their word. Everyone holds themselves to a high moral standard. Today, you guys look at leaders that take advantage of people, and just because they have more money than everybody else, you guys are like, yeah, that's my guy.
Couldn't work unless you have a virtuous people who will govern themselves when...
And dare I say, not just virtuous, but also educated. We have to invest in education so we can understand everything that's happening, so we don't fall for the silliness that we're being told. Liberty can't work unless you have a virtuous and educated people. That's why Socrates hated democracies, because the majority of the people that he was surrounded by needed an education to be able to make proper decisions. We have that same problem. We need to educate our population so we can make proper decisions.
People who will govern themselves when nobody's pointing a gun at them, nobody's threatening them, they'll do the right thing on their own. Why?
Are you a virtuous people when no one is watching? Are you helping the homeless person with water, with a sandwich, when no one is watching?
Because they have virtue, because they answer to a higher authority. Real virtue coming from real faith must be free. The people have to choose it of their own accord, and we can't force freedom. So it's an amazing thing. And they said what we have to do is we have to teach people this idea, and we have to encourage faith, but we can't force it by government. But we have to encourage a culture of faith. So when Franklin comes out of Independence Hall and the woman says to him, "What are you giving us, a republic or a monarchy?" He says, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And it is something of a miracle that for almost 2.5 centuries we have kept it. We are on the very verge of ceasing to keep it, because a piece of this, a big piece of this, is teaching every generation how it works, what America is, what American freedom is, and why it is wonderful, why we need to treasure it, because we want to flourish so that, biblically, we are blessed to be a blessing. We want to be free and prosperous so that we can bless the whole rest of the world, so we can export these wonderful God-given ideas to the whole world. It is a golden dream. It's why Winthrop called us a shining city on a hill. The idea that we could be that, truly free, so that people would look at us and say, "That's beautiful. I would like to have that."
I want that.
That's the goal.
And that happens. That's why people come here, because they want freedom. They don't want to be told. That's why they look to us as the example.
Triangle of freedom, and that's in a nutshell who we are in the United States of America. May God help us to keep it.
So that was What is Liberty and How Does Self-Government Work by Eric Metaxas. Those are the rules. You get the freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that I fully understand why it's so important for these people to announce their pronouns and they want to do whatever it is that they want to do. I don't fully understand that, but I know for a fact that picking on them, making them feel bad and triggering them, and politicians that are supposed to be looking out for these people are making fun of them. I know that that's not the answer. When I was growing up, I was told, don't worry about it. Let go and let God. What are you guys doing? So I wish you guys nothing but freedom, nothing but liberty, nothing but respect. I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me and watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and click on the little bell icon that's right next to that. So every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com and get some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.